Okay, these look like the members of the Ford Custom Line Club. Now, this car we're looking at is a 55 Ford Custom Line, which was a car sold in Australia and very common during the 50s, and generally it was the source of cheap overhead valve engines for hot rodders back in the early days of the 60s and early 70s. This car looks fairly immaculate, seems to have the original plastic seat covers self-fitted to it, and it was basically how the Ford Custom Line was sold in Australia. In America, the Custom Line was simply a model grade of the Ford Fairlane. In Australia, it was the car, and it was kind of a luxury car that sold in the market above Holdens and English Ford cars. This next car is a Ford Fairlane Victoria. This model was never sold in Australia, but it's very, very desirable and a beautiful looking car. The Victoria was a two-door hardtop coupe. It had a slightly lower roofline than the standard Ford Custom Line and Fairlane range. And this particular car appears to have all the factory accessories, including dual 4-barrel carburetors on the Y block and the very, very rare dual 4-barrel air cleaner.
Yeah, I just jerried, mate.
It's kind of interesting with these cars that they're fairly common around the world now, but they weren't always that popular in the car hobby scene, even in America. And this yellow car is also a 1956 model. Beautiful black and white interior, done to the original Ford pattern. And the car seems to have a lot of original Ford accessories, like the accessory splash guard on the front fenders, factory Continental kit, skirts. The wire wheels would be a recent added item. And then we come to the top of the mid-50s Ford model lineup, the Fairlane Sunliner. This red and white car is actually a 55 model, so it's a year older than the other two cars that we've already seen, and it's been repowered with a later Ford engine and drivetrain. So it's slightly modified, but the body itself is all original Ford Sunliner. Again, the Sunliner used the lower windscreen of the Fairlane hardtop models, but it was the ultimate in luxury Ford models. And so one of the key differences here is the way the moulding attaches to the headlight trim and the large round parking lamps at the end of the grille, which were carried basically from the previous model year Ford, and then in '56 they became horizontal. Now, this blue car arrived in Australia a number of years ago, and it was customised in America back in what hot rodders call the day. So it's an old customised Fairlane hardtop coupe. It appears to be a Victoria model with the lower roof height, and it's been modified with French taillights from a mid-50s Ford station wagon. The front headlight bezels are moulded into the car, the door handles are removed, open with solenoids. Has a lovely, what we call button tufted custom interior, and again, being a modified version, it's fitted with a later model Ford drivetrain. But for the Ford guys, that's very, very important. Ford in a Ford is the way to go. The hot rod guys quite commonly put Chevrolet engines in Ford. One of the neat custom tricks on this car is actually the grille, which came from an early 50s Chrysler DeSoto. And these grills, again, many a DeSoto lost its grill to be fitted to a custom something or other. And these grills are very common in cars other than what they were originally fitted to. One of the other differences with this car to the others that we've looked at so far is this one hasn't been converted from left-hand to right-hand drive, so it still has the left-hand drive dash panel in it, which is again slightly different to the Australian custom line models dashboards. Again, back in those days, the tooling for some things was very expensive, so when they created a right-hand drive dash for these cars, it was carried through all the cars from the beginning all the way to the end of the model range, whereas in the States the dashboard would have been changed from year to year.